You'll stay stuck in frustration if you are not intentional with spiritual formation. That has been a huge driving force behind all that I do. It's actually a key thought I have in my own book, The Non-Anxious Pastor. But you clicked on this video because you love to read like me and you're interested in the topic of spiritual formation. And this year, technically, I read less books on formation than the last few. I read a lot of formation books starting in 2019 up to 2022. I read everything that I can get my hands on when it comes to spiritual formation. When it comes to, I need to read more grammar books. I'm going to give you my top 3 favorite spiritual formation books that I read in 2024. This doesn't mean the title had formation in it. It's kind of a roundabout way. Now, the first book I want to mention is Future Church. Will Mancini quickly kind of became one of my favorite authors in the beginning of this year. I read a lot of his books, very much enjoyed just a lot of his insights and his understanding of leadership. I think one key idea, if I can just give one key takeaway from that book that I think is huge in spiritual formation, I think it's a really great contribution to this topic. When I started to read about spiritual formation, I think it was John Ortberg who gave that whole concept about trying versus training. And it's on our website, our spiritual formation website for our church, formedbyjesus.com. If you scroll down to the bottom, we made our own version where we said trying to behave like Jesus leads to death, but training to become like Jesus leads to life. And it's this idea that if we try to live the Christian life, we're going to fail, right? It's this metaphor that John Ortberg uses of the marathon. If you were to never have run ever in your life, and then the sermon inspired you, and let's say, quote unquote, it was to run a marathon, I think one of the worst things you can do is tomorrow morning, put on your shoes and go run a marathon. You likely wouldn't finish, and you likely would be landed in the hospital. A more wise approach is for everybody in the congregation, including yourself, is to realize where you're at and go, okay, for me, I need to run a half mile, or for me, I need to run 3, or whatever. And then it's this training regimen that will eventually get you to the marathon. I love that idea of discipleship and learning, and it's not about this performance, but it's about practicing the way. And so that's a great, helpful paradigm for spiritual formation that we mention a lot at Passion Creek. Another additional word of those two, trying and training, is tricks. And this is one of my favorite contributions in Future Church. He says the trying training paradigm, which I already mentioned, but he says also what we've learned to do is have tricks. So some of us, we come to the Christian life. Maybe he didn't compare it to this, but I compared it to this in a sermon once after reading his book. It's like playing the piano. Some of us, we go to a piano keyboard and we just play whatever. And if you don't know what you're doing, it sounds horrific. It makes no sense, right? If you don't know chords, it's just the worst. So that's trying, and you're going to always fail, and you're going to say, you know what, never mind, I don't need to play piano. But some of us, we learned a few tricks. So like we have Amazing Grace, or I Want to Be Where the People Are, kind of riff. And that's the party trick where you can come, I don't know piano, but I got this. And so a lot of us do this in the Christian life. I don't know, how to do much, but I do have John 3:16 memorized. Oh yeah, I don't really do this much, but I know how to pray in front of people. And so we have these tricks that we pull, and it makes us think that we're great disciples. And he says, no, that's just a trick. You need to be training, a holistic approach to your life in Christ. That was a long explanation, so I'll move on to the next book. But that was a paradigm shift for me. The second book I put, it's not a good book list without mentioning Dallas Willard. I loved his book, Scandal of the Kingdom. I actually already created a video, link in the description. I made a longer version of my joys that I had from that book. But Scandals of the Kingdom is a reflection on the parables of Jesus. And I think to be a faithful disciple and to be formed by him, I think we need more and more to exercise, maybe I'm just speaking to me, to exercise my imagination. Who we think about, the pictures we have in our mind is what we become. And I love the parables because it gives these beautiful images of what the kingdom is like, and it helps us live into it into a deeper way. And so Scandal of the Kingdom was just such a helpful eye-opener for me to understand the beauties and the intricacies of what it means to become a fully formed disciple of Jesus Christ. The last book that, goodness gracious, was very good, and I have on my bookshelf. I got Thirsting by Strahan Coleman for free at a conference I was at in September, and I didn't pick it up till November-ish, and I couldn't put it down. I actually have a lot of dog ears on this book, which is a sign that I have a lot of quotes that I put into my database. It was such a wonderful book. Here's what it did for me. It made me thirst more for God. What I loved is one image he gave in this book was this idea, this side of heaven, a sign that you have been satisfied by God is that you never stop thirsting for him. Woe to us when we feel like we have a full stomach. And that really has been kind of the feeling, the moment I have been in personally. It really does feel lately like prayer. I don't have enough time in the day. I'm enjoying it. And I say all that to say, like, it was helpful for this book to help guide me to what to do with this thirst. It had amazing theology in my mind on desire and what to do with it and how to address it in our culture. One line I thought was so good. He said, if the fruit of the Spirit is self-control, the fruit of our age is self-gratification. And so there's a lot of insights from this book that I'm going to be using in our fasting series that we're going to be preaching in February. It just made me hunger and thirst for God more. And so if that's something you're interested in being formed by him, I highly suggest you pick up Thirsting by Strahan Coleman. All right, that is my favorite top 3 for spiritual formation that I read in 2024. Comment below your favorite books in that category, any questions you may have about the books I mentioned, any pushback, takeaways, all of that would be welcomed. Thank you so much, and I'll see you on the next one. Thank you for watching today's video. This is the video I think you should watch. This is the video YouTube says you should watch.